Shannon Sharpe likes to go off on the Undisputed. I mean, go off. And he did not hold back when he heard the accusations levied against Brett Favre about stealing from the poorest of the poor in Mississippi. And then Favre, as you know, very publicly sued Sharpe and Pat McAfee and the auditor who exposed the entire fraud scheme. Now Sharpe has hired lawyers who, just like him, have gone off on Favre. But will it work? Is it enough? Let's break down exactly why Sharpe and his team are asking the judge to throw out Favre's defamation lawsuit and their likelihood of success, especially in light of the recent success that Pat McAfee has had. Hey, I'm Josh Sanford. I'm America's attorney. Don't forget to lawyer up and subscribe for more updates on this case in the future. Now, Favre sued Shannon Sharpe in Lamar County Court in Mississippi on February 9th, 2023. But Shannon's lawyers took him out of the county court and put him in federal court. This means if it goes to trial, the jury won't be made up of people from Brett's hometown who are probably massive fans or related to him or both. Now, just because he did this doesn't mean Sharpe wants it to go to trial. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. He wants this case to be dismissed immediately, and he's filed a very interesting motion to dismiss. His lawyers allege very similar claims that Pat McAfee lawyers did. First, that Favre's lawsuit misrepresents the quotes from Sharpe's show, The Undisputed. That what Sharpe said was rhetorical hyperbole and loose figurative language. That's a quote. I mean, I love lawyers. Second, Sharpe says that he was merely talking about official government action, which is true. He's not making the claims, he's reporting on official actions taken by other people. And finally, the technical argument that Favre did not fire his cease and desist warning shot early enough before filing his lawsuit. Now, we're going to do a quick dive through each of these three arguments in the motion to dismiss. But there's a catch. I'm going to take them out of order. Let's start with the last claim mentioned in the motion, which is based on Mississippi Code 95-1-5. This is an interesting statute. It's meant to discourage litigation for defamation. This law requires that before you sue someone in Mississippi for defamation, you demand in writing that they retract the supposedly defamatory statement or statements. And not just at any time. You have to give them 10 days of warning. 10 days. That seems simple enough. Now, as I said, Favre sued Sharpe on February 9th. So subtracting 10 from February 9th, that'd be January 30th. Easy enough, right? But, and once again, this is a huge but I've got here. The 11th exhibit to Sharpe's motion is a letter dated February 3rd. Uh-oh. Check this out. It says right here, February 3rd. And then you look down in the body of the letter and it tells them that he has until February 8th to retract his statements. Wait, 3, 8, that's 5 days, not 10. Look, CTE is a real thing, and the head trauma the football players suffer is not a joke. But it should be easy enough to add 10 days to February 3rd and come up with something around February 13th. And even then, we can't blame Favre's neuroprocessing because he didn't write the letter. No, instead the letter was written by a lawyer named Daniel Benson. According to the letterhead, Mr. Benson is not a Mississippi lawyer and maybe doesn't know the country ways of defamation lawsuits for the poorest of the poor. He's from New York City. Sharpe wants this case dismissed because the failure to provide 10 days of notice is, according to a small but seemingly solid body of prior cases, fatal. How fatal? Completely fatal. And there's no doubt about the math. And I was just about ready to say game, set, match for Sharpe, except, and this is another enormous but, let's look once again at Favre's February 3rd letter. As you know, we represent Brett L. Favre. Oh, the L is a nice touch, by the way. I mean, I guess without it, we don't know which Brett Favre we're talking about. Oh, Brett Lorenzo Favre. Got it. I thought you might be talking about Brett Nathan Favre. I mean, I know a lot of Brett Favres. But anyways, back to the letter. I write to follow up on my January 6th letter to you. There was a second letter? And by that, of course, I mean a first letter? The plot thickens like a roux. Favre would like that. Bayou reference. I think that before this case can be dismissed, we have to see the January 6th letter. Because if the first letter contains a clear demand for retraction, I'd say the argument about the February 3rd letter is a red herring. And that's the worst color herring there is. Now let's take a look at the first argument in the motion, that Sharpe's commentary was classic rhetorical hyperbole and loose figurative language. Oh, I love those words. Sharpe says because his statements were hyperbolic, then they are less defamatory. than if they were somehow more restrained. Huh? To defend this statement, the motion to dismiss points out several past court cases in which the courts have already decided that statements using hyperbole are not defamation, and this is the quote, even where the statements taken literally are untrue and accuse the plaintiff of a serious crime. That's a little something known as precedent. With this argument, Sharpe's lawyers are trying to convince the judge that regardless of whether Sharpe's statements were true or false, that they were said in such hyperbolic fashion that it doesn't matter. Not gonna lie, I kind of love this. Because one way of understanding Sharpe's argument is this. I defamed Brett Favre so bad that no one would ever possibly think that I meant it. So, no harm, no foul. Offsetting penalties, replay the down. As nutty as this sounds, Sharpe might be correct. Now let's move on to Sharpe's second claim in the motion that because Sharpe's loose and hyperbolic statements were made based on publicly reported information, that they can't be defamatory. A quote from the motion is this: statements of opinion are actionable in defamation only if they clearly and unmistakably imply the allegation of undisclosed, false, and defamatory facts as the basis for the opinion. Since all of Sharpe's statements were his opinion given on a cable sports debate show addressing publicly disclosed information given in the widespread media coverage of the welfare fraud scandal, his lawyers are arguing that Sharpe is protected by the law. They even take special care to address what led Sharpe to make those comments, namely the exposed, oh yikes, Brett Favre and exposing, the exposed text messages between Favre and Nancy New, Mississippi's civil lawsuit against Favre, and other media reports like Yahoo Sports and Mississippi Today. They also take a little bit of inspiration from McAfee's motion to dismiss, or it's just a very obvious point that Favre and his lawyers seem to not be understanding, by reiterating that Sharpe's statements are drawn from official proceedings like the state of Mississippi's lawsuit against Brett Favre, which, by the way, recently survived a Favre motion to dismiss. Uh-oh. And those are all the three claims that Sharpe and his team are using to ask the judge to dismiss Favre's defamation lawsuit. Now, many of you already know that Favre didn't just sue Sharpe. He filed a separate case against punter turned sports commentary comedian Pat McAfee, and also one against little-known Mississippi State Auditor Shad White. Now that you have all the information about Sharpe's lawsuit, we can begin to compare his approach and Pat McAfee's, which was successful, as I mentioned. Sharpe's lawyers asked for and received extra time to respond to Favre's case, but the case against McAfee was actually quite similar, except, and this is the third big but, McAfee was extraordinarily disciplined about saying the word allegedly over and over and over when he was talking about Favre's misdeeds. Allegedly. Sharpe, not so much. I read the transcript from the Sharpe broadcast. He did not say allegedly, to my understanding, not once. So in some ways, these are very different cases. Sharpe seems to be taking a tougher route of, even if everything I said is a lie, it's still protected speech. Meanwhile, McAfee's motion to dismiss mainly focused on proving his statements weren't defamation because of the way in which they were delivered. How effective is Sharpe's route running on the motion to dismiss? Honestly, I think it might be an incomplete pass. I'm not saying that Favre is going to win this case, but this motion, I'm not sure I love it. When you think of a classic motion to dismiss, it's not going to have any evidence attached to it, no exhibits. It's just a straightforward argument. Even if everything in the complaint is true, I still win. A normal motion to dismiss is the nanny boo-boo of legal filings. But Sharpe's motion is not like that, not at all. It has more than 10 exhibits. It really is like he's trying to litigate the case, aka have the trial in this motion. In that way, it's odd. Now, as far as trials go, he makes some really, really good points. But for a motion to dismiss, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Favre is gonna win this motion. Maybe. First of all, there appears to be a first demand letter that we don't have. A judge with his thinking cap on is gonna say, hold up, and Sharpe can't win the motion on those grounds. And then his hyperbolic insults are definitionally not defamation. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I think he's probably right, but I think it might be a question for the jury. Now, a side note here. In Sharpe's diatribe against Favre, he very squarely addresses what he sees as the racial inequities of Favre allegedly stealing $5 million and then just a regular African-American guy figuring out how to grift $400 from food stamps. He makes some compelling points, but this again, it seems like an issue for trial, not a motion to dismiss. Perhaps his best argument was that he was commenting on publicly reported facts. Again, it's not like he read the articles about Favre's hijinks with the Mississippi government and said, Brett Favre is an arsonist, or Brett Favre tried to hang Mike Pence. Instead, he read the articles about the welfare scandal and he uttered his very passionate thoughts on that singular issue. And actually, that could be a motion winner for him, but I doubt it. I've done way too many videos on Favre's defamation lawsuits to ask you to tell me whether you're on Team Favre or Team Sharpe. I know everyone's on Team Sharpe, so I'll ask you this instead. How do you feel about Sharpe's arguments compared to McAfee's? They're each strong in their own ways, but do you think a certain team's arguments outweigh or are better than the others? Please drop your pro se opinion in the comments down below, and if you don't know what Pat McAfee's arguments were in his motion to dismiss, do not fret, because I have a video covering it head to toe. So make sure you check that out. Favre has just a few more days to respond to Sharpe's motion to dismiss. We can expect him to make similar, but not the exact same arguments to his response to McAfee's motion to dismiss. Now, for more info on that, check out this video, and don't forget to lawyer up before you go for more Favre, Sharpe, McAfee coverage from me, America's attorney. See you soon. Bye.